All right, now we're going to cover the fern life cycle, which also shows alternation of generations, which means it's going to switch from a haploid uh, gametophyte generation, and then it will also have a diploid sporophyte generation. And this is the fern, so it's actually considered a more advanced plant. So what that means is that the dominant stage, which means the stage that you can actually see if you're looking at a fern, is diploid, wherein most of the moss plant that we saw in the other video, um, the dominant stage is haploid. The green moss is actually haploid cells. So let's get started, starting with the spores, which are haploid, and we'll come back to here since this is a life cycle. Spores will grow and they'll land somewhere on the ground. They'll grow and germinate, and they'll grow into the structure called a prothallium. And I don't have one of these. They're actually really hard to find. But size-wise, they're about a centimeter or two in width, and they actually kind of look like a heart. But what they are, they're the gametophyte stage because they grew from the haploid spore by mitosis. They grew, and these are not like the mosses had some were female and some were male. On this structure, the prothallium is actually hermaphroditic, which means on part of the structure there is an archegonium. So this structure would be considered the female reproductive organ, and then this part is the antheridium. That would be the male reproductive organ. So they're still haploid, as indicated by the N here. And there's a lot of similarities here between the fern and the moss. One is that mitosis is going to produce eggs in the archegonium. So anytime you see the word or the EG, it relates to the egg or the female part. The archegonium is going to produce eggs by mitosis. So we're producing haploid cells from a haploid reproductive structure. Similarly, in the male antheridium, it's going to produce sperm by mitosis. So there's no meiosis that's needed to produce eggs and no meiosis that's needed to produce sperm. All right, the next step is fertilization. So when it rains or some water gets splashed on this little prothallium, the sperm will swim or travel to the egg and fertilize the immobile egg. As shown down here, fertilization takes place, so you have a haploid sperm fertilizing a haploid egg, creating a diploid zygote. And then this will germinate and grow by mitosis. Now it's diploid, and it'll grow into this big fern frond structure called the sporophyte generation. And that's what you commonly see if you know what a fern looks like. This is the entire sporophyte generation is all diploid cells. And they can grow anywhere from a couple inches high, depending on the species, to a couple feet high, depending on some other species of ferns. But they all kind of act the same way. On the underneath part of the fronds or the leaves, they're actually called fronds, they're not true leaves. You have little brown circles. If you look closely usually at the top of the sporophyte generation, there's some brown little circles, and they are the sporangiums. They're also diploid because they grew from a diploid plant. And here in these little capsules is where meiosis is going to occur. And meiosis will take these diploid cells, divide twice, and turn them into haploid spores. And then the whole cycle begins again. The spores germinate, they turn into a prothallium, fertilization takes place, and the whole process starts over